If I were to encounter a person who found themselves in a similar position that I did, which was wanting to know more about Jesus, but didn't really know how to go about it, while I did start with the Gospels and it bore out fruit through certain coincidence and other ways, but it didn't bear out fruit the way that I expected it to, how would I perhaps have changed it, or what would I recommend would perhaps be, journeying with another human being, asking a person that you trust and admire to help you, or at least point you to resources that can help you develop your sense of wonderment and awe in the gospel. But ultimately, what was most helpful was the part that you just cannot find the magical formula for, which is that God will call you to himself. And once God called me to himself, I was able to perceive the gospel in the story of a person that I was in love with. I was in love with Jesus Christ. And so when I was reading the story, it opened it up in a way for me that was way more real, because it was telling the story of someone that I knew and I had encountered. It wasn't just some abstract writing in a book. But I'm sure other people may have done the same thing and encountered the Lord in that way in those books, but for some reason I didn't. So I think in my personal circumstance, it was trusting relationships that seemed to help me the most, because I heard the call through other people. In order to identify the Holy Spirit working, you have to essentially allow yourself to encounter a God that you don't know exists in the truest sense, that you don't know that God's there, but you hope God's there and would like God to manifest himself to you. In order for that to happen, you have to put in some effort. You have to either try to read something, or try to go to a praise and worship, or try to go to a religious service, or try to go to a person that draws you closer to the idea and notion of God. Because I then think that that is when the Holy Spirit will come in and make these coincidences that to everyone else looks like a coincidence, but to you is like, whoa, that seems beyond a coincidence. It seems as if it's divine intervention. I'm looking for something. I'm openly looking for something. And those are the signposts you're going to get. You can't find a signpost if your eyes aren't searching and open. So search, look, or pray, and talk to people that will help you keep your eyes open for those things. There's a great book called Forming Intentional Disciples, and by a lady named Sherry Waddell, and she talks about the 5 stages of becoming a disciple of Jesus. The very first thing is you need to have trust. And trust essentially means that the idea of religion and faith in God is something that you have some sort of positive association with, that you don't think of it all as being destructive and limiting, and you'll suffer and you'll lose your friends and you'll have a boring life and you'll be super, super boring, essentially, and unhappy. Instead, you have to have a positive association. So I had already had that through that relationship and those people, Sophie and Lou Krobach, showing me a faith that brought fruit to their lives. So I'd already had that basic thread of trusting people with a product of faith that I valued. Then the next is to be open. So to be open essentially means that I was willing to have my mind be changed. And that, in my personal circumstance, required me to have a deep spiritual, social, and moral quandary going on all simultaneously to help me wonder, like, what more is there? What am I missing? How can all of this be happening around me? And I can seem so successful materially, physically I was healthy. I wasn't saddled with debt. I was a physician. I had so many things going on that should have made me happy. And I felt terribly, terribly empty. And it was that openness to something else that was the ground where the Holy Spirit can come in, because you look around empty-handed and you say, well, I've got all this, but I have nothing. And that is when you are open and he can come and work on you.